Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. Great, you said. Hi, Leah. Good morning. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thank you so much for taking your time out for being here with me today.
Pleasure to be here.
Great. So, Leah, very simple question first up. What do you do?
Well, I'm a test prep professional and a scholarship expert. I've been an educator for 22 years, and I've owned my own tutoring company for 8 years. I help students prepare for the ACT and SAT, but more importantly, I help them take those good scores and cash them in to earn scholarships.
Great. Leah, you said the two numbers that stand out for me. One is 22 years and one is 8 years. So, so before 8 years, I take it you spent 14 years working for someone else, like in another organization. Would that be correct?
Yes, I actually homeschooled in Florida for 18 years. I'm also a Latin teacher, so I taught Latin for 14 years. I've taught at a private Christian school, and I also taught speech and debate for 12 years. And I actually think it was the communication skills that my three children learned through speech and debate that also helped them in that process, in that college prep process. I was able to help all three of my children earn full tuition scholarships valued at $315,000 because they got the scores and then went after scholarships.
Wow, that's awesome. Leah, you definitely aren't just SAT, ACT coach or a trainer, right? I mean, there are like a lot of other things that you've helped your students with. So what I'd like to ask you is, it seems like, last 8 years you've been focusing on SAT and ACT, but before that, you've had varied experiences. What led to you kind of, taking that plunge into entrepreneurship 8 years
Yeah.
back? And how was the transition like?
Preparing my own three children is really how it started. And I, through my homeschooling years, I also ended up realizing, hey, I really like math. I hated it in high school, but I enjoy it now. But after you teach algebra 2 3 times, like I got that down. I'm good. So it really started kicking in when I was preparing my kids. And then I had friends say, hey, will you help my children prepare for? And I said, sure. And so it just kind of evolved into that. But I actually really, really like it. And I think one of the reasons I didn't like math as a student in high school was because I had a teacher humiliate me in class because I asked a question that apparently I should have already known. And the teacher said, well, Leah, if you would have been paying attention last week when we did yada, 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 right? I was humiliated. I never asked a question again. And I thought, wow, I guess I must be done. But it's kind of funny that I grew up and became a teacher because I know now, right? The questions of clarification are so important. So important. Students need to feel empowered, obviously, to ask those questions. But I didn't have the maturity at the time to know that, right? I wish I would have known, oh, you're not a good teacher. But I internalized it, right? So that actually, I'm so glad that happened to me, even though it was hard at the time, because now I realize the importance of questions of clarification. And when it comes to test prep, I actually feel like it's better for a small group than one-on-one. And I didn't used to think that 8 years ago. I used to think private coaching, one-on-one was the best. But when you have a small group dynamic, there's more energy, but it really comes down to questions. So,
Right.
so often when you've got a small group and a student will ask a question, the other students will say, oh, I didn't know that either. or they'll ask a follow-up question on that shows that they didn't understand it. And so because that happens over and over again, I really do believe that when it comes to test prep, that small group dynamic is the way to go.
Great. Leah, I'm going to take a little bit of a detour just to, get a complete picture, right? Now, there are two things to it. First of all, you said that as a high schooler, you didn't enjoy math. And second of all, you go ahead and decide to homeschool your kids, being very well aware of what you were as a math student growing up in high school, right? And homeschooling is all about uh, you becoming the teacher. So there are two things here. First, what made you decide that you're going to homeschool your kids? Because I think in today's day and age, a lot of people are exploring that option for a lot of reasons. And my second question is, how did you adapt to kind of, how did you raise your standards to come up to a point where, you could teach your students, you could teach your kids something that you yourself weren't really good at growing up?
Actually, it's having faith in the curriculum that it's going to cover what needs to be taught. And because I started when my children were in first grade, didn't really feel like I could mess it up, right? And so we evaluated after each year. And, even from day one, it was a great fit for our family. So I actually had my daughter in a kindergarten class at a private school, and even heading into first grade into that school. But I just had a baby, I have 3 children, and I was starting to spend more and more time in the classroom volunteering, and I noticed how much wasted time. Now, I'd already taught my daughter to read at around 3.5 to 4. So I taught her phonics, and she was already reading, beginning readers at age 4 and 5. So going into like first grade when she's like 6, she's reading American Girl books, right? She's already pretty advanced into chapter books at that point in time. And this was a little surprising as I spent more and more time coming in for writing process, was I noticed that the teacher was using her as a teacher assistant because the teacher was trying to do one-on-one time with each student and walk around, but she would have my oldest daughter, Sierra, help with reading the directions on the handout. And I was blown away by that, like blown away. But then I started spending entire days in the classroom because I was really just evaluating, and God had put on my heart to consider homeschooling. And so I wanted to see how the traditional school is using their day, and I blocked out the time. There was not as much time as you would think for true academic teaching new concepts. It was closer to, like, depending on the day, 15 to 18 minutes of true teaching concepts. I know that, like, it's hard to believe, but there were so many other things that they were doing. Keep in mind, I was kindergarten, first grade, but I thought, wow, that's not a lot. So I felt confident that I could do that much and do it quite well. I'm a classical educator. It's a classical education model that we chose to use, taking students through the grammar, the logic, and the rhetoric stage of education. And, buying rock solid curriculum was what helped me feel empowered and know that I could teach it and teach it well. So yes, I did learn Latin right along with them. And I did, make sure that I got up to speed on those math concepts. But by then I really had already, overcome my concern about that. And now I would actually call myself a mathematician. So I love it, love it. And I love encouraging students in it. And I know a lot of students don't like it. And for those students that are doing test prep, I just thought I'd throw this out there because I do have an online math diagnostic that I highly recommend. So if you're not going to hire a tutor, right, and you're going to self prep, I recommend an online program called Math Chops. It's adaptive software, meaning that if a student misses a problem, it's going to come back around, ask them that problem again, but it switches out the numbers so students can't memorize the answer. And it has every single ACT and SAT math skill in the program, and it's only $20 per month. So it's very affordable, rock solid. And I have a coupon code. So if anybody wants to use it, they can use the all caps Horton MC, and Horton's HORTON MC, to receive 20% off the $20 per month. But it's such a great program. And I really do feel that that is part of the reason that two of my recent students got a perfect score on the SAT. And I do think I'm a good teacher. I really do. But it was the combination of coaching through real materials, right? Real past exams, either ACT or SAT, past real exams, pointing out the skill that's being tested on each and every question, having students reattempt the problems that they get wrong, and then also daily, just Monday through Friday, being on my online math diagnostic, because it shows me their weaknesses and strengths and it shows them. So that helps me when I'm working with them to make sure I really focus on those areas. And so I am a huge fan of Math Chops.
Right. Could you please spell that for me, Leah?
Math Chops?
M-A-T-H?
Yes, MATHCHOPS. Math Chops.
Got it.
So
Yeah,
it's a
I
great
got it.
program.
Thank you. We'll come to that. But I'm going to go back to a little bit of homeschooling because one of the most common objections that people get when they talk about homeschooling is, okay, what about the social setting? Wouldn't your kids miss out on, getting to be in a setting where they meet other kids? Wouldn't they, be very sheltered and stuff like that? So did these questions come to you? Did you think of all these things and how did you solve for them?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's everybody's first thought is, oh, well, my children have friends. Well, I homeschooled in Florida. In the state of Florida, it's huge. So there were
Right.
many, many other families that were homeschooling. So I was in a homeschool support group. We did field trips together. We, had educational events. We did all kinds of things together. We had history fairs and science fairs. And I was very active in putting my children out there with communications, learning communication skills, even when they were a child. So way before high school years, when we did speech and debate, I had them at homeschool history fairs so they could get up in front of, parents and grandparents and do a talk on somebody. And so I think that fear of public speaking, if you wait till they're already in high school, that fear will have already set in and kicked in. But if they start young, they know that they have experience in it. And I'm all about, with experience comes confidence. And that's so true with test prep too, right? The more experience you have going through past real exams, you're going to become a confident and prepared test taker.
Great. And if you had to, suggest three most commonly made mistakes by new parents who choose to homeschool, what would those be? What are the three do not do, three things?
Well, don't do it just like the school. Like, don't go, okay, well, my child's in school and I'm bringing them home. I'm going to do it just like the school did it, right? The part of the freedom of homeschooling is the fact that the parent is directing the education. The parent is deciding, hey, there are lots of different ways to homeschool. There's unschooling that's just very unstructured. There's different plans. I would say research the different ways to homeschool so that you're informed and pick the one that works for you. The reason we chose classical education was because it was very structured and had extremely high standard. A lot of our founding fathers in America were classically educated, and a classical education incorporates that reading of the classics and studying Latin and studying formal logic, and heading into high school, the rhetoric years, learning communication skills, right? And proper writing skills. And so that's why speech and debate was such a great fit for us, and our family was involved for 12 years, so long time, and my children competed. And so in high school years, all of their friends were their debaters, right, within their club. And so my children had a ton of friends, and they spent a lot of time with them, and a lot of them did things together. And so yeah, it was a wonderful fit for my family. It's not a fit for everybody. We were pretty academically focused, and it paid off because, I did end up having my own three children, even though when they started the test prep journey, I just want to say this, all three of them were scoring around national average or below. And I was like, why? Why? They were straight A students. And it took me a while to figure it out, but I know now. And the reason is this: when students say they're a straight A student and they're in pre-calc or algebra 2, if they have, say they're in chapter 9, they've been in chapter 9 for 2 weeks, if they've done the reading in the chapter, they did their homework, all of those concepts are going to be fresh in their mind. When it comes time for the exam on chapter 9, they're more likely to do better on that type of an exam than a college entrance exam, which is so diverse and is testing so many different skills that they just have forgotten a lot of them. And I'm going to say something, Jag, and I don't think you're going to believe me, but it is so true that when students are starting the test prep journey, a lot of times they're missing more arithmetic problems than they are the geometry and algebra. And it's
Right.
because they have forgotten details. So, for example, volume, area, circumference, mode, median, mean, right? Let's take median. A student might understand that skill. They might know if I give them a list of 5 numbers to reorganize them from least to greatest and choose the number in the middle, right? So they might even understand the core components of that skill. But because College Board tests it with a box plot, and students haven't seen a box plot since 8th grade, they have forgotten a detail that the vertical line is the median. And so many
Right.
students miss that. So on my end, it's showing that they missed that skill, right? Because I'm
Right.
constantly evaluating what concept, what skill is this that the students need reinforcement on. And so that's why it's so important for the students to know what they don't know, right? That's why I have students do those reattempted problems, because what I used to do 8 years ago when I first got into this was ask students to go back and to reread the problems they got wrong, because I know that reading math is a skill, and reading math simply means understanding how and why you go from one step to the next step in an equation. So that's a very good skill, but it's passive learning versus active learning, doing. But so what I learned was, shocker, students didn't do it at all. They didn't go back and reread the problem they got wrong. But more importantly, they lied to themselves. They would say, yeah, I'm good, I got this. But had they reattempted the problem, they would have gotten it wrong. And so now I want the students to know what they don't know, right? After the coaching session is over, I coach through each and every problem. Within 1 to 2 days of class, they're supposed to reattempt 10 of the problems they got wrong. 10 of the ones are like, oh man, I should have gotten that right. Or, oh, that was easy. Can't believe I missed it, right? Choose 10 of the easiest ones and reattempt those problems on freshly printed sheets. So it's not the same sheet that had your old math on it. But that process of reattempting the problems has been so beneficial because, again, it's good for the students to know the skills that they don't know. That's why Math Chops is so valuable. It shows them the skills. And for any students that are taking the October SAT, I highly recommend ordering the QAS service. It stands for the question and answer service. It costs an additional $18. But what that means is when the students get their scores back, so after they take the test, obviously, they are able to go into their dashboard and see the actual test question. So valuable. It's valuable because they look at it and go, oh yeah, I really do need to know how to use the quadratic formula. Oh, I do need to understand fractional exponents to brute form, or systems of equations, or isolation of a variable, right? So when the students can look at the problem and name the skill, right? Let's pick an easy one. Distribution and adding like terms, right? Even the name of that skill tells the student what to do. First you distribute, then you add like terms, right? So it's so helpful for the student to get to the point, and they're not going to memorize every single one, but they will memorize the vast majority through experience.
Right.
Because my program is taking students, we'll just use SAT for example, through all 10 practice tests, because College Board put out 10 free practice tests that are online, right? You can just Google it, SAT Practice Test 5, and it comes up in a PDF format. But what I think is important to know is that practice tests 1 through 4 were written to be practice tests to cover the skills that they wanted students to know. But practice tests 5 through 10, those 6 practice tests are past current exams that College Board turned into a practice test. So there's no better material. I am not a fan of copycat curriculum. And what I mean by that is the plethora of materials you can buy at Barnes & Noble, right? Princeton Review, Kaplan, Barron's. Because when they write their study guides, when they write their practice tests, they're thinking, now how would College Board word this systems of equations problem? Right? There's just no need. And the good news that we just found out recently, I am a member of the National Test Prep Association, and that just means I'm a legit test prep professional. And ACT and College Board, they attend our conferences, they help us stay up to date on the changes. And we just found out that the skills that are being tested on the math for the digital, right, are the same skills. And so that's actually really, really good to know. So yes, you're going to be taking the exam online, but it's still the same concepts. So.
Great. Leah, you said another tool uh, after Math Shops. QA, I missed it. Can you please repeat it for me? The next one, QA Surface. Is that what you said?
Oh, yes. Okay. The QAS service is
QAS. Okay.
something, yeah, which stands for the Question and Answer Service by College Board. Don't confuse it with the SAS because that means nothing. That's just giving you information whether the question was easy, medium, or hard. And then they name the skill, but theirs is way too vague. They'll say algebra.
Right.
Right. So, but the QAS service is really, really good. And that simply means that you're buying the test questions. But I will tell you, right, because College Board is legally required to release the test questions, right, which they do 3 times a year. They don't really want to, so they don't make it easy for you to find. So I
Right.
will tell you, if you purchase that service, which is $18, when you get your scores back, the student can go on their dashboard and they click on something that says test questions. You would think it would come up right there, right? Nope, no, it doesn't.
Right.
It comes up number 1, what their guess was, number 2, what the correct answer was.
Right.
If the number 1 is blue,
Mm-hmm.
it's a live link and you click the number 1 and it goes to the test question. But there's
Right.
nowhere on the screen that tells you that, right? But if the number 1 is black ink, then
Mm-hmm.
you did not purchase the service.
Right. Got it. Leah, I'm gonna, take a slight detour and kind of get back to the tools because you've already mentioned 2 tools. It'll be easier for our listeners. Are there more tools and each of them assisting them with a certain thing? Those who are going to go with self prep, could you list them down if you've got more up your sleeve, like
Well,
Math Shops and QS?
right. I think No Red Ink is another service that's more and more test prep professionals are starting to recommend for their
Hmm.
students to make sure that they're on top of their grammar skills. So that's an
Right.
English grammar online training. And I do think that Khan Academy, I want to step back and say, I respect Khan Academy, like free education for the world. I don't think it's enough for test prep, mainly because of the fact that there's no accountability for the student. I have had parents, oh, we're just going to do Khan Academy, but their student only gets on it for like 5 or 10 minutes, right? So it's better to have a coach to make sure your student's really working and really prepping and getting a lot accomplished. But if they're going to self prep, then Khan Academy is good. You just have to know that there's no support, right? There's no chat box.
Right. Sorry, I lost you at chat box. They don't have chat box.
Right. There's no phone support, email support, or chat for the students if they have any questions.
Got it, Leah. Great, thank you for that. Leah, you didn't start out to be a teacher. You're not a trained teacher, but then you kind of took your own path to become the teacher that you are, and you've been running uh, these services in the last 8 years, right? So,
Mhm.
for those of you who are in a place that might be similar to yours when you started out, what are some of the best practices that you would ask these people who are starting off now to follow to be a successful, let's not talk about even SAT teacher, just to
Right.
first become a teacher, and then maybe if they want to get into SAT, what are the things that you think they need to know?
As far as starting the homeschool journey, don't do it alone, right? Join a homeschool support group in your area. And if there aren't any other homeschoolers, right, or very many of them where you live, definitely join online and be in a support group where you can ask questions of people that have homeschooled. There's a ton of homeschool support groups online. I've been a member of them for years, and they were so encouraging and so helpful for me because I wanted that myself. I wanted to have a friend I could contact when I was, butting my head against the wall. And we were trying to um, some of the things that worked for my older two children didn't work for my third, and I was surprised and kept trying. And then I had to realize I needed to adjust and do things differently. So I think also just give yourself time to figure it out, right? Give yourself grace, give yourself time. Don't school for 8 hours, right? I think the assumption is that these schools are teaching academically that whole school day from 8 to 3 or whatever. And they're not. You need to know they're not. So you're going to finish um, the academic portion of your teaching in a way faster scenario. But that's where you can run with delight directed learning, which is something I was a very uh, planned, organized homeschooler where we did this and this at this time. But I did also rotate in freedom, which worked for us.
Great. And what was your transition? Of course, I'm not saying SAT and ACT is something else from what you did teach. It's just continuation of whatever you taught. But what are the changes that you had to make in your teaching methodologies to kind of focus your skills to become a focused SAT or an ACT teacher from being a teacher who were focusing on the school curriculum?
Right. Actually, I think I needed to learn how to become a business owner because I felt like I had the teaching down. I did know how to teach and teach well and help. At this point, I was already having experience under my belt of helping students go through that college prep process, which, by the way, can have a lot of anxiety. I think for a homeschool mom thinking, oh, did I do it right? Did I do it enough? Did I did I do everything that I needed to do to help my student get into their dream school? And it's something that I really prayed about a lot. And I kind of prayed that God would bring it into my life, somebody that knew all the answers and could help me. And he answered my prayers and said, no, but I'll teach you and then you can help others. And I'm like, that's not what I meant. But I think that, you know, it parents need to realize that they need to give themselves time. They need to give themselves um, time to learn the process, but also touch base with other people that have gone through it before so that they have that helping hand. So that would be my main advice. And then I am also a huge fan of speech and debate. So I would say that's a great thing to jump in. If your students are already age 12 and higher, there's a lot of speech and debate leagues. There's even online leagues that they can join. And it's a huge part of that process of earning scholarships is being able to communicate and communicate well.
Right. Leah, you touched upon one of the most important things, right? You spoke about one is being a teacher, and another is the skills that as a business owner you need to have. Now, to all those teachers that are transitioning into business owners, where the service is teaching that they're providing, what are the top three skills that they need to pick up, which as a teacher they did not have to become a business owner?
Well, I think having the right equipment and so part of the systems in place, like for example, I have a laptop and an iPad so that I can, in my class, which like 95% of my business is via Zoom these days, and I
Right.
had transitioned to that pre-COVID because a lot of my clients are from Florida and
Mm.
in the homeschool world, and I've started speaking at homeschool conferences. But I believe that also being surrounding yourself with other people that are on that journey. I am a member of the Boss Babe Society, which is female entrepreneurs. So encouraging. I'm in the process of creating an online course. That's a college prep course that helps students and parents go through the process and understand what they need because there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. And so I want to help as many people as possible with that. But I think that in transitioning from a teacher, a full-time teacher, to a teacher slash business owner, it is that surrounding yourself with other people that might just be a couple steps further than you are, and realize you can truly make a good income in this industry. I have been able to double my income from one year to the next because of practices that I learned through the Boss Babe Society about building my email list and also being with my colleagues through the National Test Prep Association. And you would think these other companies that run test prep companies that they would be my competition, but they're not. They're my colleagues, and they want to share their knowledge and share their success. And so we have summits and masterminds, and I love going to those meetings because I learn something new all the time. And I'm like, oh man, that's free. Calendly is free. Oh, that made my life so much better because I have people scheduling scholarship consultations with me. And yes, I was old school. I did not know. I had people texting me back and forth. And does 3 o'clock work? No, that doesn't work. Does 2 o'clock? And so the Calendly link now is on my Instagram, right? And
Right.
as well as my website, which is just hortontestprep.com. But now it's so easy to let people schedule a time for that consultation that works for their schedule. And I found out that detail from attending a National Test Prep Association meeting. But what I'm saying for, whatever um, type of tutoring or business owner, they might even want to, not be a teacher anymore and open up a educational consulting business or anything else, right? Like my mind has grown so much with the possibilities of what to do. I actually just got my master's of education, which is kind of funny that I homeschooled for 18 years and then went to grad school and got my MEd in leadership. I loved it, absolutely loved it. But I still have the joy of teaching every day, right? Like I'm teaching ACT English or ACT Science or SAT Math. So I'm still having the joy of those aha moments when students, learn a new concept. But now I'm seeing things through a different lens. I absolutely loved my psychology of learning class, and it's just really helped me see things from in a different way. And I uh, just have grown a lot as a teacher right? As a business owner,
Right.
having gone through grad school.
Great, Leah. So if you have to summarize, for a teacher who's looking to transition into being a business owner as well, you started off by saying having the right equipment, and then from what you said, I'd probably say networking. So if you have to like list 3 to 5 things, what would those 5 things be? 3 to 5 things.
Well, I would say, yeah, the right equipment, because before I was like, even just this is years ago, doing the whiteboard, which there's
Right.
still some coaches that are doing that. I'm like, oh man, you got to be able to, you know, step it up a bit and have organized systems in place. Also, you know, and as being a business owner, you need to have different sources of where your leads are going to come from. Are they going to come from webinars, which work very, very well? So I do highly recommend webinars. I'm just moved to a new city, so I'm now in Pendleton, South Carolina. My first step is going to be contacting the high schools and meeting with the administrators and say, hey, can I come in and teach a free class? Can I come in and maybe do a talk and explain what the change is going to be when the exam goes digital, so the
Wow.
students are going to understand the difference? And um, so I'm going to be reaching out to those IECs, so independent educational consultants that help students position to off to schools. And so I'm in that process, right, myself, of wanting to go, where will my new leads come from? So make a decision of where do you think your leads are going to come from, and then go all out. So for me, I'm actually an affiliated educator with the National Society of High School Scholars, which I'm a huge fan of. They're actually international now, so I just thought I'd mention that. So definitely have to change their name, because their scholarships are not just for high school students anymore. A lot of the scholarships are also for college, all through college. So I that's just another source for those teachers that are going to be going. So if they're going to stay in the education realm, or still be dealing with students, I would connect with that organization. And I think finding yourself with other entrepreneurs, whether it's in person. So I haven't had a chance to check to see if there is a networking here in South Carolina, but I'm going to look into it. And if there's not, then I'm going to stay involved with my the Boss Babe Society. But I think it's so important for teachers to continue learning themselves what skills you're always going to be learning. And also, as a business owner, I think a really, really important thing to do is to fail. Fail fast, fail often, fail forward. And what I mean by that is just embracing those mistakes and those failures and say, yay, I'm learning, I'm moving ahead, and I know not to do that now. So, my female entrepreneur hero is Sarah Blakely. She's the founder of Spanx, which is female undergarments, which it's a multi-million-dollar company. And she is all about, you should be failing every single day. And if you are not failing at something every single day, then you're not trying hard enough. So at the end of each day, you need to go, what did I fail at? And then, woohoo! So when I accidentally posted on Instagram a link to a different test prep company in my stories, because I thought it was just practice ACT tests, I go, oh. And when I realized that, like a couple hours later, Sarah would be so proud. She would be so proud because I failed. Or when I learned the difference between a free QR code and a free forever QR code. Some free QR codes are only free for like 2 weeks. So
Right.
I started to speak at these conferences, and I apparently had grabbed a free for 2 weeks QR code, which I had printed on my postcards just so that I could gather the email addresses from people that came by my booth quickly and easily. And so when I got a message in an email that it had expired, of course, I'd already spent money on printing those cards, I thought, oh, fine, I'll just go rent it for a month or two. I'm sure it's only going to be like $12 or $15. Oh no, I couldn't do that. I would have had to do a year subscription. It was going to cost me $129 to reactivate that QR code. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Sarah would be so proud. And so, of course, I had to research and find free forever QR codes and get the cards reprinted. But those are just one of many
Yeah.
mistakes that I'm learning in running a business. And I'm happy about it because I used to be afraid of failure. And now, again, I know it's a mindset thing, but you really, as a business owner, need to have that mindset of always learning new things, right? And failures, mistakes, whatever you want to call them, are so good, needed, and you need to rejoice in them. Like, you need to be your own best cheerleader and remind yourself that it's really important.
Great. I really love that idea, where especially given that you've moved to a new city, you spoke about contacting high schools and offering to give out a free class and stuff like that. Wow. Uh, Thank you for that. That was awesome. Amongst a lot of others as well, but that really stood out. Not very commonly heard things. I've not heard that a lot. So great. Leah, you said, you started going online even pre-COVID. The COVID was not the reason for you to go online because a lot of your students were from Florida. So you said you were using Zoom. That was back then, it's been at least 3 years now. So what does your online teaching setup look like now? What are the tools that you use and what are the challenges that you face? Where do you think technology can improve to solve problems that teachers like you face?
Okay. Yeah. And when I first started, I was on Skype, and it kind of evolved because I had a friend from speech and debate who lived in Miami and who kept trying to talk me into teaching this one student. I'm like, no, I'm so much better in person. They can see me, I can see them. And she kept twisting my arm. I finally gave in because she kept bothering me about it. And I tried it and I loved it. He could see me, I could see him, he could see the math and follow along. And it worked great. And so it was me kind of giving in to try it. And then it started just being people in Orlando, Florida, that they were just across town. And once they knew that that was an option and they could decide either in person, come over towards me or do it online, a lot of times the parents were like, yeah, we're just going to do it online. And then it just started growing. And then in between there, moved to Georgia as well. And I didn't skip a beat. So a lot of the families in Florida are trying to earn the Bright Futures scholarship. So I've helped countless students, hundreds of students earn Bright Futures. So it's been a thrill. But as far as other systems, now that I'm on Zoom, I'm evaluating pencil spaces as well because of the
Sorry, what's
screen
that?
shrink.
Pencil spaces.
Yeah, pencil spaces. I haven't had a chance to check it out fully, but some of
Mm-hmm.
my test prep friends are
Right,
using that now. So I'm going to be evaluating that very, very soon.
right,
I think just so far, all I have really needed was my laptop and an iPad as far as the supplies. But it's more than that. It's deciding what are you going to teach, right?
right,
Uh, and I actually would recommend online courses. I think that's the way to go because right now I'm in a stage of trading my time for money. And I know
right.
I'm in that stage, right?
Yeah,
And that's fine, right? So, but I want to do the author of a book style, right? You write a book one time, you sell it. And I'm like, I like that plan. So, although I do think I will have my foot in the door of teaching always a little bit, I think I would love to transition into creating an online course that is both for test prep and then the one I'm creating right now is a college prep course that's going over how to get organized for scholarships, passion projects, collegiate research, interview skills, how to get into a competitive school, Ivy League schools, and I'm interviewing people that run those companies. So when I'm teaching about executive functioning, right, for high school students, so that those students can learn time management skills and study skills, which, by the way, a lot of college students do not have study skills. So it's really something they should learn. You would think they do, but they just don't. So I'm then interviewing somebody who runs a study skills company, right? So if that student and that family wants to get, even more advanced, then they can do that. And the same with interviewing an IEC who specializes in getting students admitted to competitive schools and Ivy League schools. So that program is something I'm working on in September. So I'll make sure I come back around and tell you more about it once it's out. But it's going to be great because it's covering a lot of topics that both the student and the parent kind of need to know, even to details like letters recommendation, right? Ask for 6, you're only going to use 2. And so many parents are like, why? Why ask for 6? Well, I'll be honest with you, it's because a lot of adults are not good writers. Or they put it off to the last minute and what they write is very average, right? It's stellar letters of recommendation. That's what it takes to start earning scholarships. Over the top stellar letters of recommendation. And so it's important for the students to know what to ask for stellar letters of recommendation from their teachers or their youth pastor or whoever's going to write that letter for them.
Right.
If they ask for it, hey, would you be willing to write me a stellar letter of recommendation? So when the teacher says yes and they sit down to do their job, they know their task. Write a stellar letter of recommendation. And there's things that the student can do to help that teacher along, right, by giving them a student resume. So as a reminder of some of the things that they've been involved in so that the teacher can write a really over-the-top letter. But when it comes to earning merit-based scholarships, you really do need those over-the-top letters. They matter a lot. That's why I recommend asking for 6. You're only going to use 2, so you have choices. And trust me, when you read the letters, you'll know what I mean. You'll be like, yeah, well, that's very average. That could be describing anybody, right? And the letters need to not mention the name of the scholarship or the name of the college in the letter. So the letter needs to be very, very specific about the student and why they're the best thing since sliced bread, but generic in what the letter is being used for, so that once you've narrowed it down to those 2 over-the-top letters, you can ask the recommender, which, by the way, I'm not a fan of blind letters recommendation. And a blind letter is when the teacher says yes, but the student doesn't get to read it. I'm not a fan of that because if you're going to be going after some really top scholarships, then you need to know what's being said about you. So
Leah, I'm sorry to interrupt you here. So is it allowed to read a letter of recommendation or is it not? So what's this blind letter of recommendation and not blind letter of recommendation? What's the rule like?
Okay, well, every scholarship is going to have different rules, right?
Oh,
So
right.
unless they say only blind letters, but I want to be really clear on that point. It is always the recommender that sends it on to the college or sends it on to the scholarship, okay? It is always the recommender that sends the letter on, whether the student read it or not read it. I don't recommend blind letters, right?
So that
Because
means it's the scholarship body is never going to be able to make out if it was entirely blind, right? So if you really want to read it, you can read it and still
if the
have it sent.
recommender, right, if the recommender
Cooperates.
is willing to share it with
Willing
you,
to share.
right?
Right,
And so
right, right.
I'm of the mindset, if you ask a teacher, hey, would you write me a letter of recommendation? And the teacher says, yes, but I only do blind letters, then I would walk away. I would say no, because
Right.
there are some amazing scholarships like the President Coolidge, which is a full tuition scholarship for all 4 years, includes room and board to any college the student chooses, right? Like that's my favorite one here in America. And that's an amazing scholarship. You would not want to be going after a top full tuition scholarship with a letter that you don't know what's being said about your child.
Right.
So that's why I recommend asking for 6, right? And receiving all 6, right?
Right.
And then choosing the 2 best ones. Then you go back to the recommender and say, and ask permission. This is the student doing this, asking. The student says, "Thank you so much for writing that amazing letter. I really appreciate it. It was awesome. I actually financially need to be applying for a bunch of scholarships and will be applying to a bunch of different colleges. Would you mind just leaving that letter on your desktop and uploading it as needed for these scholarships?" They're gonna say yes. They always do, right? They want, it's to their pleasure to help these students out. But I have found that so many students are not applying for scholarships because they're nervous about, oh, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to ask them again, right?
Right.
So I actually had a booth. I had a Horton test prep booth at the Scholars Day event in Atlanta, which is the National Society of High School Scholars conference that they had in Atlanta last November. And it's a big event. There's like 500 students there, and a huge college fair. And I had a booth there. I asked every single student that came by my booth, which was about 200. So I saw a lot of students. I asked every single one, "Have you applied for a scholarship through NSHSS?" Only one. I heard a lot, "Oh, I'm going to. I'm planning on it. I'm looking into it. Yes, I think I'm going to really soon." Only one. That blew my mind because they're so active that they went to Scholars Day event, but they hadn't applied for any scholarships. That tells you that not as many people are applying as you would think, right? Now, it's only members of the organization are able to apply for the scholarships, but they have a ton of scholarships. They're like $1,000 for this, $2,500 for that. And I wrote a letter of recommendation for one of my debaters through the NSHSS, and he won $2,500. And I became an affiliated educator, so I can nominate students. So if anybody needs to be nominated, you just have to prove your grades or test scores. I'd be more than happy to help with that. But now that I know a lot about this organization, again, 2 of my own 3 children earned scholarships through them. One earned $2,500, the other earned $1,000 scholarship. So I know they're legit. and it's good to continue the process of going after more and more scholarships, because I think not as many students do. Really, it's more high school seniors apply for 1 or 2, and then they're done. They just accept their financial aid package to that particular school. What they should do is start their junior year of high school of going after scholarships, and go after scholarships all through college.
Great. Leah, now that you spoke about scholarships, I've just got a few questions, right? So, is there a limitation to the total number of scholarships that any student can apply?
Is there a limit?
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yeah.
No, there's not a
No.
limit to the number of scholarships that you can apply
Scholarships
for.
that one can apply, right? But you say that people might hesitate to apply because there's a certain fee that one has to pay while applying for the scholarship. Is that correct?
I think the fear is thinking that is not knowing the process. So really, when somebody joins the National Society of High School Scholars, I tell them, go apply for a scholarship right now. But
Right.
the goal is not to win it. You may want to win it, but that's not the goal. The goal is to learn the process, right?
Right.
Realizing, oh, I need a student resume, so go write one. Right? Oh, I need letters of recommendation, so go get them. Right? So that process that students have to go through just to learn how to apply for one scholarship. I also recommend joining search engines that are going to help them, and realize that they can just join 1 or 2 search engines that's going to help them find others, and then fill out their dashboard so that
Right.
they are getting scholarships that match to their potential major. And I am starting to put more and more scholarship information out on Instagram. So they're welcome to follow me. It's just at Leah LeMaster Horton, because I'm putting scholarships out there for students, and maybe you can have that underneath the podcast, but that way they can continue to see, oh, there's scholarships for all these different majors. There's scholarships for students that are senior in high school as well as students that are in college, and find them that way. And the thing is, what's really beneficial for these families is to know there's some scholarships that the parent can apply for the
Right.
student. Right? So the parents need to know, oh, which ones are those? So I can go do it for my child, right? And know that they're out there. They just need to get organized. And I would say twice a month, like every other Saturday at 3:30 p.m., go, oh, this is my 30 minutes between now and 4. I'm going to look into what scholarships need to be, I need to apply for, and then put it in your calendar. Oh, Tuesday, I'm going to apply for this one. This needs a short essay. And Thursday, I'm going to apply for this one. This needs a short essay too, but they're similar. So I can take that same essay and just tweak it, right? So if you're going to start applying for a lot of scholarships, and again, my family did that. That's why I was able to help them earn $315,000 worth of scholarships, is because we went after a bunch of scholarships and they kept tweaking their previously written essays for the new prompt.
And could you list some of the most, underrated or largely unknown scholarships that, students are just missing out on?
Well, I think that I love the Distinguished Young Women Scholarship as well. That is a very reputable organization. They've been around a really long time. They give away millions of dollars each year. My oldest daughter ended up earning over 21 or 22,000 through
Wow.
them. Both my daughters were Disney scholars. So I think I would say the Distinguished Young Woman is a really good scholarship to consider. And it's finding, those search engines that are going to work for you, and maybe even create a new email address that's just going to be for scholarships. So your personal
Right.
email
Right.
box doesn't get overwhelmed, because it can. You'll get a
Yep.
lot. And so I think it'd be very easy to get overwhelmed by all that. But truth be told, it really comes down to putting it into your schedule. When are you going to work on those scholarships, right?
Right. Right.
And which ones are going to be a good fit for you, and have it be a part of the schedule. And this is both for the high school student, right? Junior and senior, not freshman. I wouldn't go after scholarships when you're a freshman in high school. You haven't done enough to talk about. But when you have, that's why starting your junior year going after scholarships is a good idea.
Right.
Hopefully you've reached your highest score ever by that October of your junior year. That's the goal. Because I have parents ask me all the time, when should I start the test prep journey? And that's not really the question. The question really should be, when should the student reach their highest score ever, which is October of their junior year.
Mm.
The reason that's so important, and so you can back it up, it's usually a 5-month journey for most students. Sometimes students can be faster, sometimes students need more, but for 99% of students, it's the full 20 weeks. So that's the norm, the test prep journey, for the students to reach their score goals and to have significant score increases. It takes
Right.
that much time. So back it up from October, right? And so, yeah, you're either starting sometime in the middle of spring semester of 10th grade or the summer between 10th and 11th grade. That's the time to start hard and reach those goals by October, and then go after scholarships your junior year of high school as well as your senior year of high school and all through college.
Right. Got it. Leah, thank you for that. Leah, probably the final topic that I want to touch on is the technology aspect of your business, right? You said you are starting to realize that, you're trading your time for, you're like spending a lot of your time and you'd like to, scale up. And then that's where your online courses have come into the picture and you're creating one already. So what's the transition from a technology standpoint?
Well, that really comes down to marketing efforts and who's going to host the course, right? Because you can't just have it on your website really most of the time because people can just strip it off. So the benefit of having an online course in like Kajabi or Mastermind, access to that, it really is going to come down to marketing your product. So if somebody's going to create an online course, which I do recommend that these teachers that are transitioning into business owners, because that's the new thing. It's the knowledge broker business, right? Take what you
Right.
know, whether it's organizing the kitchen or, whatever the it is your dot of what's your interest and your passion. And my
Yeah.
passion is really encouraging students in the truth of the growth mindset. That's what really I get passionate about, is helping students realize no matter what the it is that's hard, they can do it. Because I've noticed a lot of students fall into a fixed mindset and they don't even know it. And a fixed mindset is, oh, I could never learn that, or I could never be that, or I could never be a brain surgeon, right? That simply means they don't have the skills to do brain surgery now. It doesn't mean they don't have the ability to learn those skills. So the growth mindset, which is my passion, is helping students realize, right, and adults that are transitioning into a new career, realize the truth of whatever you're learning. You can learn it. So this is something also that's kind of grown in that, from grad school. In my psychology of learning class, we kind of touched the base on growth mindset. And
Right.
I will tell you, I used to think, oh, mindset is whatever. And whether you do an exercise program or a nutrition program or you start anything, you always start with mindset. And I just thought, can we just get past this? Yes, of course, I want to lose weight and get in shape. Like, let's just, but I was so wrong. The
Right.
mindset is everything when it comes to
Yeah.
learning new skills, whether it's learning test prep skills or whether it's that teacher that's transitioning to a different business. It's the learning of hard, right? Whatever's your hard. And so I learned hard in school. I was in a constitutional law class, and before class started, I had to write 101 legal briefs.
Wow.
I about started hyperventilating. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to write a legal brief. What is a legal brief? Oh my goodness. And they were all on education and public schools. And anyway, just so you know, I would read the entire court case, right? These were Supreme Court cases, and summarize it and say the Supreme Court made this decision because they upheld this constitutional amendment, right? I wrote one, sent it to my professor. He's like, you're good to go. Write 100 more. So it was hard, but I had to keep telling myself,
Right. Right.
hey, I can learn this. I can do this. And those situations kept occurring again and again and again. And that's why I really enjoyed going back to school over 30 years, was because of the fact that I did have that opportunity to conquer hard over and over and over again. And, adults need to learn the truth of that too, that whatever it is, they're going to learn, and they may need more time. They may need better materials, like better curriculum, whatever. They
Yeah.
may need more different skills. I certainly had to learn a lot of tech skills in growing my business. They may need to learn marketing skills so they can communicate to the world, hey, I exist, right? They may need, a tutor or a mentor or a business coach that's going to help them learn automation and learn systems that are going to make things easier and better,
Yeah.
like Calendly. Helped me so much be able, because I have client calls all the time. These are
Right.
parents that contact me and they want to learn about what I offer and what I do. But that one process, right, that one system that I incorporated into the Horton test prep has really saved me so much time and headache
Right.
from going back and forth on texts and scheduling. So it's those processes, right? And when it comes down to if they are going to do an online course, then jump into other support groups that are teaching you how to do that. There's a lot of influencers online. Russell Brunson runs a Marketing Secrets podcast. I'm a huge fan of Russell Brunson. In fact, on New Year's Eve, they ran this special for their funnel hacking live in Orlando, Florida, which is the end of September. And my dad lives in Orlando. And I jumped and bought a ticket. So I'm going to this marketing conference at the end of September.
Wow.
I know no one, but I am so excited
Yeah.
because I know that is a huge piece of what I need to learn
Yeah.
to let the world know that I exist, right?
Yes. Great. Leah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And, I'm pretty sure that, all of the teachers, who are just starting out, irrespective of, what they're teaching, be it ACT or SAT or any other thing, I think some of the things that you've had to share has been like plenty valuable. So thank you so much, Leah.
Oh, my pleasure to be here.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Thank you so much.